This is why we see in Negroes this phenomenon where they can father 5-6 children with 3-4 different women, whereas white males or Oriental males barely manage to procreate one or have one child. Because for the Caucasian, it's all about quality, whereas for the Negro, because he's more primal, he still functions according to more primitive standards. For him, it's about numbers. The more he feels validated, the more valuable he feels. Because as an individual, he's inferior intellectually, he compensates in this manner. He compensates for his lack of quality with quantity. Females, of course, the average female, is easily taken by this pretense. Because, like I said, anything that even resembles masculine energy, a higher order for her, is seductive. And since she's primarily primal in her intuitions, the Negro is very seductive for her. Of course, as she grows older, and this is why women often say that when they were younger, they sowed their seeds. When they got older, they were more, they awoken, or they came to their senses, supposedly. It's because as they got older, they realized that there was a price to be paid. So the pragmatic costs took over, and they had to compensate, or they had to settle. They had to compromise. Of course, some of them, if they become wealthy later on or settled, they return back to their earlier stages. That's why we get the cougar. They return back to their original primal state. So they return back to their pure, hedonistic, animalistic ways. The idea, of course, that females can be returned back to the senses, or they can be shamed to a more rational way of behaving, is absurd. First of all, women have no shame. We can see this from their behavior. They have no shame whatsoever. They don't understand shame. Shame has to be something that is imposed upon them as a cost, as a price to their behavior. They don't understand integrity. They have no pride, no ego. All they want is to facilitate their role, and that is to be as female as possible, to give themselves to their nature as much as possible. So once they're released from the bonds of social control, which is called paternalism, they easily and quickly and happily revert back to their original state. They cannot be shamed. There is no reverting back to some more rational behavior, because women have no reason. Well, the vast majority. There are exceptions to the rule, but we're talking about the norm now, not the exceptions to the norm. So these infantile males that think that by using these tactics of shame and pressure and peer pressure that they will accomplish anything is at its most naive. At worst, it's childish, it's fantasy. They assume that females are governed by the same psychology that they are forced to abide by. And that just shows they have no clue. Of course, there are the females, the less attractive ones, the more fat ones, the ones that have less options, sexual options, that will show some more controlled, more compromising judgments. But we're talking about the female at her prime, at the peak of her power, the most attractive female. The female at the top of her power, which is her sexual power, because a female has no other power except sexual power. She has no power to reason. She has no power, physical power. She has no political power. All she has is sexual power, and whatever power is allowed her by males or the male entity as a representational power. She has nothing else. This is why if you see feminism, it seeks to empower itself via social conventions. They never go outside the norms. They never ascribe to anything in nature, natural selection. Their entire dogma is based on within the rules, manipulate the rules and find an advantage within them. Of course, for males it's not the case. For males, ascribing to the rules is a form of emasculation. The same way but that ascribing to morals is a form of emasculation, of capitulation to the social norms, to the social rules. Now they may do it because of necessity, but when you buy into it, like some of these effete males do, where they actually believe that there is such a thing as morals, then we witness here the emasculation, the total feminization of man. These men are not only pretending to be female, they are in all respects female, and this is due to centuries of social selection and because of current pressures. Now, like I said in another vid, women's function is that of a genetic filter in nature. Her role in nature is to filter out all mutations that are not fit to survive. So the cripple, the stupid, the weak are excluded from the genetic pool through the agency of a female's choice, female's sexual choice. That's why when a male tries to seduce a female, either intellectually or physically or whatever, or dominate her, he's really proving to her that he's worth perpetuating as a genetic entity. Now, when she gets immersed within mimetic structures, this genetics comes into opposition with mimetics. So now she's asked to be a mimetic filter. That is, her criteria change from genetic criteria to social criteria. That is, it's not the strong, intelligent male, it's the one who's more socially apt. And aptness is experienced by the female as wealth, as social status. That's why you see females attracted to fame and fortune magazines. You know, all they talk about is these stars and who they're fucking and what movies they're making, what songs they're making, so on and so forth. Even philosophers who make it to the top and become icons experience this female attraction to them. They get these groupies. Sartre had one groupie, and so did Nietzsche, and I'm sure Schopenhauer did, and many others. It's this attraction to masculine symmetry in the form of intelligence. This is a more sophisticated type of deducing value for the female. She's more prone to more abstract definitions of order, and the physical is not that important to her. Why is that? Because the physical is a manifestation of the past. That is, in order for somebody to become beautiful, his or her ancestors have to have experienced certain successes, genetic successes, and through those genetic successes, in regards to the environment, would have exhibited asymmetry of form, which was passed on. But this doesn't mean that the person who inherits this genetic past will exhibit the the factors that contributed to this. That's because genetics works at a slower rate to mimetics. It's more long-term, takes longer for adaptation to occur, whereas mimetics is more faster. And intelligence is usually an indication of mental flexibility, mental swiftness. That's why comedians and people who can be funny are considered attractive by females, because they show this flexibility of mind, which is a mind that can adapt to the circumstances, the immediate circumstances, despite the fact that they might have inherited poor genes, which were less capable of adapting. In fact, the fact that they were the inheritors of poor genes forced them to adapt. That is, necessity is the mother of all invention. That means the fact that you're burdened with bad genes or a bad past or a challenge forces you to either adapt or die. So the people that adapt successfully are the ones who are worthy of replicating. Whereas people who just inherit symmetry in the form of physical beauty may be dull of the mind because everything comes to them easy. So they don't have to change, they don't have to adapt, they don't have to work, they don't have to think. So they sort of stagnate. That's why in nature everything goes through cycles. When you reach a height, then the decline comes. And when you reach a depth of degradation, then you start ascending upwards again. And everything goes into cycles. That's why after everything we've said already, we can conclude that we can't take anything a female says seriously. Everything a female says has to do with relationships, sex, sexuality, children, and her interests, of course, are empathy, sympathy, compassion, because these facilitate her belonging within the group. She has nothing rational to give us, nothing on any abstract level, on any objective level. She does have a supportive role to play, and she's very good at that. And we can find there solace, belonging, comfort, a means to an end, but we can't find there any rational discourse. We can't find growth. We can't find a challenge. We can't find anything beyond the base, the earthly, the natural. We can't find any attempt to exceed nature, to go beyond it, to break the bounds, to soar up over the earth rather than settle upon her. Of course, there has to be a balance in a male, because if he lets himself go to his masculine side, then he's prone to delusion. He becomes prone towards fantasy, towards these extraordinary hypotheticals which have no bearing and no grounding on anything real. The feminine aspect of human nature is a grounding aspect. It's what settles you upon the earth. But in raising above yourself above the earth, you have to stand upon it. That is, you have to dominate it. Not let yourself go into the ether, into the air, into this flight of fancy, but to ground yourself upon earth without being dominated by it. To stand upon earth, to literally stand upon earth and raise your head above it. That is the masculine balance. The Greeks considered the philosopher a perfect mix between scientist and the artist. I would say the perfect human is the mix between female and male, where the male takes precedence, where the male is dominant, and where the female is not dismissed or ignored or rejected, but is controlled. And it is this control which gives you an insight not only to human nature, but into feminine, female nature also. Women are demystified in this way. They are no longer this mysterious entity. They are base. They're like animals, something unknown, yet something simple, something you can observe in its behavior without being perplexed by it.